Maxed Out Man, helping you become the man you were made to be.
Hey guys, this is Kevin Davis from Maxed Out Man Podcast. We are going to be talking today with Mr. Matt Steele. This is episode 2 of this little freight train that's going here. We're just getting started, but I'm so stoked to have friends of mine come on board. And Matt, I didn't get an official bio for you, but let me say let's call you a front man extraordinaire. Like you basically, people pay you to talk loudly over the microphone and and on TV, right? So, you do Trucks Gone Wild and you're on Truck U for how many seasons is this?
Dude, next month, we're going to start the 19th year of Truck U, which is crazy. I mean, I'm beyond thrilled that the train is still going, you know?
Yeah, that's amazing. That's you and Bruno have been, the rapport that you guys have on that is amazing.
Thank you.
And you do events all over the United States. So like, give me to get started, just so, because not everybody is going to know this is a really diverse audience. Michelle was like, hey, you're having like multiple car guys on your show or truck guys or automotive. I'm like, yeah, because these are my friends, but they have more than trucks and cars and automotive stuff to talk about. So, but give me kind of your, quick little bio on what you do and your history and that kind of stuff as far as your career stuff goes.
Man, that's a good question, and it can go deep. I don't know if you've ever thought about this, because I love what you're doing, right? Because I think it's cool. I think you talk about being a man in today's world, and you watch television, and the dad is always like the most ridiculed guy on the show.
Yep.
That doesn't matter that he's the one that bought the house. Like, nobody cares about that, right? But it's so crazy. Like, you ever think about the fact of what you're doing now makes sense when you look back and you put the puzzle together in reverse?
Yep.
But at the time, do you remember? Because I do. I remember being 25. I remember being 30, even 35, going, "What the hell am I doing? Is any of this going to pan out?" And then it does. And you never know what's going to happen. It could be somebody you meet. It could be a job that you get fired from. There's always something, and you're like, why am I going through this? How is this going to play out? But then when you get to be our age, you look back and you go, oh, well, clearly this happened because of that. This happened because of that. Because I never set off to be on TV. I never set off to be, and here we are in the 19th year. I never set off to have like this motorsports promotional company that we started that 19 years ago too. Trucks Gone Wild. We've traveled the world doing that, dude. I'm like the luckiest guy in the world. Worked my ass off, but sacrificed a ton. But when you look back, you're like, wow, this has really been awesome. So
you were in your mid to late 20s, right? When you started kind of all this, right? Then
I'm 28 right now. Yeah, no.
I know. You're about my age. We're about, I just turned 50. So if you're talking 20 years ago, that puts you in, late 20s, early 30s. What did you do before all of this train started rolling?
So I was going to UCF in Orlando, University of Central Florida.
Yep.
And basically I was going to college, didn't know why I was going to college, but no other dude in my dad's side of the family had gone to college. So I felt like I had to be the first one, right? It was like I was doing it for everybody else. It was a complete waste of time. I'm not going to ridicule college because I have my own feelings about where college is at now, or a lot of them. I mean, if you want to get into that, I'm fine. But
we can talk about that, but it was different back, 25 years ago, right? Yeah. Or 20, I guess it'd be almost 30 years ago now, right?
Sure. It sucked then, and it's only gotten worse. So I was there, and I was working at a place called Church Street Station, which is an old school Orlando tourist thing. And I never minded talking in front of people. The DJ showed up drunk to work one night that used to introduce the band. They sent him home. Nobody knew who was going to introduce the band. I'm like, I've been listening to him introduce the band for 2 years. I'll go do it. They're like, have at it. So I went up there. I got the DJ job. Next thing you know, I'm DJing nightclubs, right? Country nightclubs mostly. Through my,
you went up there with like half a headphone on, doing all that crazy scratchy stuff.
Not a lot of scratching, not a lot of wiki in the country nightclub business, 25 years ago, but. It was a lot of talking because you had to address the crowd. You had to host little games, and I've hosted everything. And that led to, Monster Jam used to come to Orlando every time. I started announcing Monster Jam because of that. That kind of Trucks Gone Wild spawned from that. Truck U started in the middle of all that because I was on the Monster Jam show. Like, that's why I'm saying now, looking back, it all makes sense. But at the time, it was just like, where is this going? So
yeah. And Trucks Gone Wild is basically big ass, ridiculous trucks doing tug of war a lot, right? You do lots and lots of stuff, but in some of the venues. So it's tug of war. Do you do mud races too?
Yeah.
You guess, yeah. So you mud drags, all of that crazy, huge ass truck stuff. And I mean, when I say huge trucks, like it's, imagine Bigfoot, but way cooler than anything that Bigfoot at that time had kind of, that was all we had, right? We had Bigfoot, and then you got Gravedigger and some of those, and now it's a whole entertainment industry in and of itself.
And the craziest thing for me is I grew up as just a uber fan, like a total dork level fan of those trucks that you mentioned. And now I'm personal friends with those guys. It's
nice.
Crazy. You know how it is because you've been there. You stood next to the trucks at our event that you came down to in Orlando. And it's like my friends that aren't into this, they're like, oh, yeah, big trucks. I see them driving on the road all the time. I'm like, no. If it can drive on the road, it's not big. They're like, oh, they're like my Tundras on 35s, right?
Yeah.
People are like, that truck is huge. I'm like, that truck is a lowrider.
Yeah.
But
cool. When we were there, I mean, and it's not just that they're just big welded together pieces of junk. Like these are multi hundreds of thousands of dollar builds. They've got full, major 8 to 12 inch control arms and crap like that are all chromed out and lit and just beautiful. Like that's what surprised me is like, I kind of had this vision of, all right, these guys are going to go out and get this thing super dirty. But then I get there and I'm like, they've got hydraulic lifts in order to get up to the dang thing. I mean, that's like the workmanship involved is something that really surprised me.
And do you know why 99% of those guys build those trucks?
Hopefully marketing to get chicks. I guess getting chicks is a marketing ploy, right? Like that's chicks
and getting other dudes to go up, dude, that's a nice truck, right? It's like the other guys dig it and the girls all like it. And the guys are like, well, that was a good $250,000 I spent on that. That's good. So, and why not?
That's a funny. It's a funny story because when Michelle and I started dating, I was driving my '67 Chevelle that I had built, and I, it was super nice and all that. And so I started telling her about the Chevelle, and you think, oh, girls dig, hot rods or whatever. And her comment was, well, because I'm telling her it's 67. This was in the late 90s or early 90s. She goes, well, at least it gets you around. The only one that cares about this Chevelle is a bunch of old guys that want to come up and talk about the builds. So I guess trucks are probably a little bit different, but that's, and
thank goodness people do, so.
Yeah, for sure. So, well, I mean, you brought up the college thing. I think that's interesting that because I have 2 degrees. I have actually an exercise physiology degree and a degree in business. I used them for a time and it kind of, like you said, everything kind of leads into other things. But like at that time, it's just, I graduated high school in 91, and that's just what you did. And I went to, I'm old. And I
graduated before you.
But like I lived in a college town. I pretty much didn't go to my senior year of high school because I was already enrolled in college. And it's like, this is just what you do. And I'm interested in your thoughts about, because I know that now when so one of my kids is a paramedic in Atlanta. She went and was an EMT, but she's also going to college pre-med. And we've had these discussions with her, like, man, do you, first of all, have you talked to any doctors, and how they enjoy being in the healthcare system? And secondly, go for it. If this is what you want to do, that's great. The other one tried college. It just wasn't for her. But I'm interested what your thoughts are about all that stuff. We don't mind getting a little controversial in this thing.
What's interesting to me is because you always hear people say, well, college, you need it if you're going into corporate America because you need that on your resume just because they won't even look at you without that. But dude, like corporate America and me are like polar opposites, right?
Yeah.
So that's fine. And my buddies that have retirement and 401k and all that stuff and vacation time, I'm a little jealous. I don't have all that. But I mean, I can go do whatever I want to on a Tuesday. So, I mean, it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. But it's always the thing with me. Like, they're like, well, if you want to be a doctor or a lawyer. Okay, doctor, yes, I understand. The guy like drilling a hole in my head and fixing my brain in a couple years.
You want him to take a couple of classes, right?
I hope he never drank a drop in his life, right? I hope he was to bed early, and studying all the time. And the like lawyer though, like some of my good buddies are lawyers, right? And some of them are like they're real tightly strung and this, that, the other. And you can tell they studied a lot. And the other guys are just really good talkers and they're super confident. And you can tell they just partied all the time. They got their law degree. And they're like, yeah, I don't know that, but I'll look it up right before. Everybody's got all the law you need right there is on the phone. Right?
And they got a paralegal, right, that does all the research for them while they're on the golf course.
You just have the balls to get up in front of people and speak your mind and try to sway the audience. It's debating. So I don't understand that. Let me tell you who I want to go to college. The dude building that big ass bridge that there's 87 cars and trucks on. I want that dude to know what he's doing.
Yeah.
I don't want like my buddy that lays concrete that is done every day by 3 so he can go drink beer. He makes a good living and he's all good, but I don't want him building all the big bridges. I want the smart dude doing that. So.
Yeah, he can lay the rebar and pour the concrete, right? That's the.
But dude, look, we're in a position now where we hire people to do social media. We hire people to do different things, as you are. I want to know basically what you've done, and if you haven't done anything, are you at least enthusiastic? Will you be there? Will you do what you say you're going to do? And will you just give it your best? That's really all. I don't know that college can teach work ethic, which I think is one of the things that's missing. But
do you think that college is? I mean, I think both of us probably agree on this. But how do you see? I mean, you've got how old is your son? He's in this. You got one son. Your girlfriend has 2.
And Julie's got 2 boys, and I've got one, and they're all 19 and 20.
Okay. So how do you see that? Like, if he went to college, how would what he learns today look different than what you started to learn when you went to UCF back, 25, 30 years ago?
I just thought at the time that the majority of my professors, I don't know. I'm real sarcastic, and I'm like, I just thought they didn't really know what the hell they were talking about, and I kind of wondered how they had the job of teaching us, right? Yeah. And no disrespect, I had a couple of wonderful ones, but the wonderful ones were they taught the advertising. They taught the more creative, strategic point of stuff. I had some speech teachers that were fantastic because they challenged us, and that was my big thing. That's the only reason I got through college, because I did finish.
Oh,
that
you
was
did?
The only
Okay,
reason
cool.
I got through, because I could give speeches, and I wrote people's speeches, and then I didn't, because I don't do research. I don't do research now. I'm not going to read. You know what I mean? I got no interest in that. I read stuff when we do a product on Truck U, I've never heard of. I don't really know what it does. Okay, I'm going to read that. I'm going to get the bullet points out. Oh, that's pretty cool. All right, boom, action. We talk about it, boom, and then we're done. That's the extent of my reading. So I'm not a big research guy. I think today, like it or not, not all the professors, but I think it's more political. Back in the day, you didn't shoot. When I was 20 years old, I didn't know what conservative or liberal meant. I didn't know a Republican from a Democrat, basically. My family didn't really discuss that. And now it's such a hot button topic, and let's keep everybody pissed off at each other. We didn't have that back in the day. That really just kind of escalated the last couple of years, I think.
And it seems like in the college environment, just in talking to my own kid, I mean, even pre-med, she's taking biology classes, which, that's an easy one for, to get on the soapbox about any of that stuff today. But it's like it feels like that for the majority of what it's indoctrination is probably a bad word, I think, but it's like back in the news, right? I was listening to somebody talk about the fact that, 25 years ago, we didn't really know what the political leanings of any particular newscaster was. Now that is like, that's how you define that particular person reading the news. And I think the same goes for, if you're taking a theater class, right? Like, now you would kind of expect an artsy fartsy type theater person to be liberal. And they probably were back in the day also, but we didn't really, that was just kind of part of their personality.
And
we didn't talk about it.
And that's fine. Yeah. I mean, So what? Yeah, but gosh, dude, yeah, it's funny, and now too, and I say this having been on television, it has nothing to do with me, but it's like you watch the news shows, and all they want, so many of them, they just want to put somebody on there that looks okay. Hey, they look clean, they've got nice teeth, put them on the air. They've got no experience. I don't know about you, right? I'm 50 as well. When I watch the news and you see somebody, you're like, I know that there's no way they're older than 25. And I don't know this about them. I make generalizations. I'm just going to guess they've either never been married or never been divorced, or a couple times. They probably don't have kids yet. They probably haven't bought and sold property. They probably haven't started their own business. They probably haven't failed at business and had to start over again once, twice, maybe 3 times. They haven't had any of these. Maybe they've had all that. But I'm just going to say at the age of 25, most of them haven't. So for them to tell me how I should be thinking, I'm like, you know what I mean? That's basically my –
yeah.
I'm like, yeah, whatever. Next. I'll be out on the boat. Thank you.
Listening to your country music, right? That's
dude, it's a combination of like the outlaw country from the Waylon Jennings, Merle Haggard days to the 80s metal, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I have a hard time listening to newer country. Like if we're out working on the shop or whatever, the Spotify station is usually old school country, because that's, I mean, and those songs were just about beer and women and sex and all that as today, but at least they had some differentials. They were a little bit different. I'm not much of an 80s metal guy, but
bro, it's like how many songs about trucks and tailgates and 6-packs? It's like, okay.
Yeah, that's for sure.
You know what, dude, my son listens to some stuff because it's not radio stations anymore for so many of the kids, and he listens to like I don't even know what it is, but I guess you could call it almost like Americana type. And some of those dudes are pretty good because I'll find something playing, and that sounded like something that we might listen to 25 years ago. I'm like, dude, who's that? And he's like, oh, that's whoever. I'm like, I like that. It happens.
Yeah. Yeah, they're out there. Music's always been formulaic, but it's a little bit more obvious now, I think, right? Like it's much more.
There's some new good stuff out there in the country. You just damn sure aren't going to hear it on the radio.
No, and I don't even it's so crazy because we have Sirius XM in our Jeep and my phone connects there. I don't remember. First of all, I don't like listening to DJs talk. Like that's just always been it's just as like, just shut up and play me the next song. Yeah, and so like the whole Spotify series, I'm hurting your feelings a little bit but
you guys tell me you don't like hosts of automotive television.
Yeah. Those guys are the biggest idiots, right? Like I wish they'd just show me the segments without talking. That would be stop. No, but like I don't mind being able to go in and say, "Hey, play this song," and songs like it. Hey Alexa or whatever. That we use Alexa a lot, even though they're watching me and recording every sound I make. We do. I do like the convenience of turning on my lights without actually getting out of bed. At
least you're being tracked.
That's right. Yeah, you can turn off the setting that says "Don't record and report," but it's still happening. It just is, so I gave up the idea of privacy for convenience a long time ago.
Just imagine if you're the dude that created that. You're going to go, yeah, I'm going to put a little switch here that makes people feel like they can turn it off. We all know that.
Well, you heard the stories. Like they found out they were literally recording people's intimate sessions, and because they have humans that review those recordings in order to quote unquote improve the translations and, voice to text recognition and all of that stuff. So they were listening to all this stuff. And so they went back and revised the policy, so to speak. But like there's literally, there's millions of recordings that exist somewhere on Amazon servers.
That's a little scary. Like if you're just, maybe you're pushing the limits one night. You know what I mean? You don't need people hearing about that.
Yeah, right. Or maybe your wife's like, "Is that it?" And you don't need anybody hearing that either.
Everybody's going, "So you apologized for 13 minutes?" Yeah,
yeah, that's above average, man. Keep at it.
They're like, how many times can you say, "Don't judge me on round one"?
Yeah, then Alexa turns around and is like, "Hey, man, that was 33 seconds longer than last night. Good job. That would freak me out a little bit because she has these. So we haven't had Alexa for that long, but they have these things called hunches, which is essentially AI. So it's artificial intelligence to where, like, if I turn on my lights every night, and you can disable this feature, but if I turn on my lights every night at 9:15, between 9:15 and 9:30, it will eventually say, hey, Alexa has a hunch that you want these lights turned on at 9:13. And do you want to do that? And you can. So like it's examining your own behavior and then asking you, trying to make your life more convenient. I've never worried, I know people talk about TikTok and all these different things where everybody's listening to me. I mean, I think if you exist in modern society, you've given up the right of privacy for the most part. It's difficult.
You know what I decided? I don't know, probably a couple of months ago. It's like if all of a sudden things get leaked, maybe that you don't want leaked. The worst thing you can do in today's world is apologize, because all you're doing is opening up the wound, right? It's like, I think you just double down, no matter what it is. You just double down on it. Go, yeah, I did that.
Yeah, so, my ass looks great in that shot. Yeah. Thanks for posting that one and not the other one.
Yeah, you're like, look, you know how long it took me to get the lighting right for that picture? Like, yeah, I'm not ashamed of it.
Yeah, we do have an apologetic culture, which I think for the most part is like, I mean, they apologize for the stupidest stuff. It's like, just be, I mean, and then everybody's got a conspiracy theory, Will Smith and whether or not that slap was real and, all of that kind of stuff. But, so I was curious about, you've been a single dad, right? So you raised your son. How did that? I'm curious about, because we've talked a little bit about it, but and if you don't mind sharing,
no. I don't mind sharing anything, dude. I'm an open book. Let's see, my wife and my ex-wife and I think my son was, let me think, 2016 he was probably 13 when my wife and I split up. So single dad from that point, right? I've been with Julie now Julie and I have been dating around a year and a half.
Oh, okay.
And I have all intentions of that not ending because she's wonderful. So, so whatever what was that, a 6 year, 5 or 6 years of being by myself. But that was from the age of 13 to, 18, which is a tricky age.
Oh man. I mean, boys are, I have 2 girls. So when they turned 13, 14, we were considering just murdering them in their sleep. I can see how that happens. But
the hardest thing, I think, and not to interrupt, I apologize.
No, go ahead.
The hardest thing for me was that when you split up and the marriage breaks up, it's terrible. It's a terrible feeling. A lot of people have been through it. I don't envy anybody who's gone through it. And of course, nobody ever thinks it's going to happen to them. I was one of those included, but it does. Reality sets in, and it's like you overcompensate with the kid. It's like, okay, we're going to be super nice. And I learned that, like, my kid was cool. He never played us against each other. My ex and I still get along great. So I'm very fortunate in that situation. But the hard part was you got to spend so little time with this little person that you love more than anything that you would rearrange your schedule around everything, right? And you would, if they were going to be around, you'd stop everything, work, friends, everything. And you were just like, all right, I got to be there because Colton's going to be here for this. That little dude, and turning into 16, I gave him my old truck and we lifted it for him and everything because I was like, man, I want him to have a cool truck because I didn't have all that when I was a kid. That dude turned 16 and he ditched me so damn fast. Like, deuces, Dad, I'm out. I'm like, bro, I 3 years I rearranged my whole schedule for you. He's like, yeah, I'm going to the beach. See ya. And
Thanks for the 3 years, Pops.
Oh, dude, and you cry for 6 months or so and you feel all lonely. And then your friends are like, dude, you really need to meet somebody. I'm like, I'm not leaving the house. I'm like, my joke was, unless a girl's tire blew and she pulled into my driveway and walked to the backyard down by the lake where I was running around moving dirt with my John Deere tractor, I wasn't going to meet anybody. And I didn't for a long time.
Till he was at the beach, right? Yeah.
Imagine that didn't work. Yeah. So
I mean, so that's a unique position that, because in general during the divorce, right? Like almost always it becomes a single mom kind of situation deal, right? Where but in your
where
case
she
you
raised
get,
them?
yeah. And
Yeah.
the dad a lot of time is a little bit absent, which I think is pretty common and disappointing, but
Dude, and that was because of that. That's what drove me to be the best and the most present dad that I could be. Again, get along great. You'll never hear me say anything bad about my ex. It's like wonderful mom, right? And everything's cool. And we both love that kid dearly. But there are so many, like my dad, when my parents got divorced, I think I was around 10. And at the time, my dad was drinking pretty heavy. And he didn't mean to, but I always thought, Dad's just falling asleep at 7:30 at night.
yeah.
Why is Dad so tired every night?
Yeah.
And you're like, Dad likes me, but he's sleeping. Okay, well, I'm up until midnight. This kind of sucks. And we didn't have, I didn't have the internet back then or anything to keep you busy. Basically, you had HBO and Cinemax that you could watch like this. And
all scrambled.
You didn't know if it was a nipple or an elbow, but it didn't matter. Right? So, but dude, you're so right. And in today's society, and I talk about the absence, the what happens because of the fathers not being around. You talk about it all the time. You can see it in discipline. You can see it in respect. You can see it in drug use. You can see it in low self-esteem in girls. It's sad. And I am not diminishing the role of the mother. Please do not ever think that, and nor are you. It's like that. It's an involved parent, but to think that one parent can be both. Maybe there's some that have probably pulled it off before. There's some amazing men that have pulled off the role of both, amazing women that have pulled off the role of both. But it doesn't usually happen that way. And you see what happens. And then in this culture of divorce, you see what happens. You see that a girl grows up without a father reassuring her of her value, right? And then you've got boys growing up without a father whooping their ass when they're screwing up. How often do those two people come together and meet?
Yeah.
And next thing, no good comes from, well, not no good comes from that, but a lot of times good doesn't come from that. I don't want to say no good comes from that, but because nothing is absolute.
Well, I mean, marriage is hard anyway. I've been married this will be 28 years for us, and we've had our own challenges. And even, when our kids were teenagers and I mean, it took both of us, to keep them alive in the way of when they turned about 14 or 15, and this is going to sound bad, but it's like, I had to keep her from murdering the children, and she had to keep me from murdering the children sometimes, just because they were awful. But I think that, I mean, and they admit it. They're like, Dad, Mom, I can't believe I'm surprised that you didn't kill us or kick us out or whatever. But, and they're both good kids, but that's just part of having a teenager, I think. And girls emotionally are a little bit different, but I mean, my mom, my parents divorced when I was 6. And back in those days, this was in Texas in the 80s, late 70s. Like, your mother it didn't matter what the situation was. The dad had no chance of getting custody. So like, I saw my dad, 1 week in a month or whatever. And the rest of the time was spent with mom, which mom had we don't really have much of a relationship now because she was drug addict, alcoholic. We lived with a different guy every 6 months to a year, all of that stuff, which sucks. But my dad wasn't necessarily all that involved in, so I had to kind of learn how to be a man through, different, I had big brothers and big sisters. And then when I got into high school, I had friends of mine that had dads that I could be involved with and all that. But like, I would have loved to have a dad that would take those 3 years with me when I was 13 to 16 and say, hey, I'm going to set aside my life in this way in order to be there for you.
What's amazing is Colton, and you met Colton.
Yeah.
Right?
Good kid. Yeah. I really liked him.
Great kid. He's legit probably the best human being that I know.
That's awesome.
But so many of his friends come over, and it's amazing the amount of kids that have bad parent situations. It's sad. Mm-hmm. Ugh. And it's like, you want to tell them, you want to go, dude, come over anytime. Let me know. Let me know what I can help you with. Ask me anything. I've done everything wrong you could do. I've screwed up everything you can screw up. I'm an open book,
Yeah.
It's tough, dude. I get a little emotional talking about it.
Yeah, I
which I
mean, you
don't
have a lot.
mind.
It seems like in your little, you've got a pretty tight knit little neighborhood there, right? And
Yeah.
you were telling me that all the kids are kind of grown up around the same age and all that. Has that
Yeah.
kind of been have you been able to have that role in some of those kids' lives?
You know what's fun, dude? Like Julie and I'll be sitting on the dock, right? And that dock, we had dinner on the dock.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not romantically, but I'm just saying.
Well, I mean, I do have a little bit of man crush.
So that dock, I think, has been there I think I had it built maybe 11 years ago, right? And it's like the number of kids that grew up in this neighborhood running and jumping off of that dock. It's so cool. I love it to be able to have facilitated that. There's so many kids. I had old neighbors. They're like 19 and 20. They stopped by maybe a month ago. I get a text at like 10 o'clock at night, and it was a kid, Griffin, that used to live next door. He's like, Mr. Matt, you up? I'm like, yeah. He goes, we're driving around. Can we come? They moved, maybe 2 years ago. He goes, can we come back and drive by the lake and come look? I'm like, yeah, dude, come on down. So they pulled the truck into the backyard. I went outside and met with them, and we were just looking at the lake late at night with the spotlight and all that. And he's like, man, he goes, I have so many great memories from here. And that kind of makes you feel good,
Yeah.
So, because he's not going to.
And I mean, the fact that you had an impact on their life, not just like they're not just calling you up because they want to be out on the dock, right? They're, you had an impact on that. And that's, it's one of the things that I want to do with this whole Maxed Out Man project is kind of help men to have more of an impact. First of all, in their own families, but secondly, on those around them. I'm curious about like, what did you take? Obviously there's some genetics involved and all that, but you helped Colton become the young man that he is. Are there things that you did specifically to facilitate that, we don't have to get into like, hey, here's 10 things to do to raise a good man in 2023, but I'm interested because I mean, I've been around you. We've become really good friends pretty quickly. I've seen you with your son. I've seen you with other people, and that genuineness I've just really respected. That's one of the reasons I want to have you on here is because I think that you have something to show other men. Hey, this is, I've reached this level of success, not only with all the other stuff you do, but like Colton is a great example of your success. And obviously he's not a perfect kid. No. None of us are, but like if people meet you, I've always enjoyed when people meet my girls and they'll be like, we love that your daughter, how old is she? Well, she's 22. Well, she seems like she's 30 or whatever, because of the way she presents herself. So I'm curious about that. What kind of,
as a parent, there's no better compliment than what you just gave me. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. I think, I don't know, man, that's a tough question because there certainly wasn't a damn handbook. I can tell you that. You know that.
Yeah, no kidding.
They're like, get the hell out, right, of the hospital. I'm like, where's the instructions? They're like, yeah, good luck. Yeah. Thanks. So I think that I'm just, older people always treated Colton good for whatever reason. Older kids were always good with him. And he went to a daycare after he was a couple years old, just for the social aspect of being around other kids. He went a couple days a week. And when he started, he was the little kid there. And when he left, he was the big kid, and at the end of it, he was taking care of the little kids like he was being taken care of years prior. I think that had a lot to do with it. I think I have always taken him with me to things. I used to have some rental properties back in the day, and I would bring him to contract negotiations, and he would sit at the table and listen, even when he didn't know what the hell was going on. He would be here I do a lot of work on the phone, getting things ready to go. And he would hear how the phone calls would go. And then I would hang up and he's like, well, what was happening? He's like, you sounded mad, but you didn't sound. I go, yeah, I was pretty steamed because of this. I said, but this is how I handled it. He goes, well, is it all good? I go, yeah, you stay calm and things have a way of working out. And I think it was just a habitual pattern of stuff like that. Like he went to the beach last week and he was telling me, and he's like, Dad, he goes, this kid was drunk and coming up trying to start a fight with our group. He goes, and I was breaking it up and everything. And he does. He's the peacemaker, if you will.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think there's an element of luck. There's an element of honesty, and there's an element of letting your kid go and do things. I remember he would take off with the trailer and the four-wheelers and the truck at the age of 16, as soon as he could drive. There's a big place in northwest or northeast Florida called Hogwaller. It's where they run four-wheelers and all that. And they're open all weekend. Or he would come to our Trucks Gone Wild events and just go. And people were like, my friends were in horror. They're like, how can he do that? I'm like, he hasn't screwed it up yet. He hasn't blown it yet. I'm giving him
and even if he did, that's the way to teach him and help him figure out, how do we not blow this next time?
Yeah.
Right.
So I don't know, dude. I don't know. I think I'm just lucky, and I let him do his own thing. And fortunately, he never really screwed up. Now there was a time when he had his truck and he was doing donuts stuff, burning out, and he was going through rear ends like crazy, right? And it's just like, it's like, Dad, I don't know what happened. I just put it in gear and clunk. I'm like, yeah, it doesn't usually do that, And then you find out because they all put everything on social media, and then somebody shows you, oh, you think this broke your son's rear axle? Arm out the window, middle finger to the sky, doing donuts in front of 1,000 people. I'm like, I don't know where he got that, but I'm like, that'll. You'll go through. Yeah,
all that was missing is Dad announcing the event, right? That's the.
So, dude, that was funny. There was a time there for about a year and a half where he wouldn't. Like, we were very close, but that was in person. Like, he wouldn't call. He wouldn't call me and check in, Yeah. If the phone rang and his little face came up on the phone, and I remember I pulled him aside one day. I said, dude, you've got to just call me every now and then and just go, hey, Dad, I'm just calling for the hell of it. How you doing? I go, you have to do that because right now, every time you call me, something's broken. And I said, I might be with the neighbors, dude, hanging out, and I'm 3 drinks in to a night that's just getting started. And I can't help you. I'm not driving anywhere, Like, oh, truck's broke in Daytona. Get a ride home. Come get the trailer.
Yeah, there are lots of vehicles around there in Daytona right now, so you could probably find a ride home, right?
Dude. So I got a little sideways on that. I apologize, but I don't know.
No,
man.
that's what I wanted to hear.
You know what it is? I always, too, with Colton, man, I never wanted him to lie to me. I was like, dude, if you do, that's just going to ruin everything. Because once you're lied to, I don't know how you are, probably very similar, dude. Once you're lied to, 100% trust never comes back.
Right.
Like with me.
Yeah.
You might get 98% trust back, but the other 2% I'm just waiting for the hammer to drop again, right?
Yeah.
And I told him, I said, dude, I can handle anything, whatever it is, because if you break something, it's money. You can go out and make it, right? As long as you're not hurt and nobody else is hurt, and you're not lying to me, we can handle it.
Yeah, I mean, and that's important. That's I think our society now is kind of built on lies.
Oh my gosh.
That's where the social media stuff comes in and all that, because they always talk about the highlight reel versus what real life looks like. And I think we're teaching these kids to lie as a way of being almost. So having that honesty part of it. And, I always talk about there's like, what does it mean to be a man? Right. And that definition can shift and change and all that. But I think that basis of toughness and integrity is a big part of it. And I think that you didn't say this outright, but I think that the way you taught him about that helped instill a level of integrity that he'll carry through the rest of his life when he has children, if he has sons or daughters or whatever. I mean, that's a huge, it's almost inevitable that, it's like, kids, I think, can specifically turn away from what you've taught them, at least even in a microcosm of their life. But it doesn't necessarily mean that, that they're going to carry that with them and just, they can, because some kids are just like some people are just dicks. But, I think that integrity aspect of it is what's missing now.
Dude, you got to let boys be boys, right? Mm-hmm. And they're, at the risk of sounding whatever, I don't even know what the word would be today. Like they got to get energy out. They got to laugh at stupid stuff. It's what we do. And that they're trying to like strip that away. It's like, okay, look, dude, look, fart jokes are funny when you're 75. Dick jokes are still my friends and their buddies in their mid 70s. Dick jokes still make them laugh. It's like, okay, well, they're funny, clearly. I remember like when Colton was young, he couldn't even talk yet. He was a little baby, and he ripped just this gigantic fart, right? He couldn't talk, so he didn't know what funny was. Dude, he farted and started laughing, and I'm like, it's funny. It's naturally funny, right? And you've got to get that's got to happen, and to try to smack him on the wrist and go, you can't do that. You can't. Now you can't let him go out and start punching people randomly. That's the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah,
that's illegal and bad. But that's when you smack him on the ass and go, hey, look, we don't do that. That's not how we operate. So
I always talk about using testosterone for good. When I meet young boys, that teenagers after they hit puberty, it's like, you are full of testosterone that I would love to have.
Yeah.
But you have to use it for good. Let's get you weight training and working out and, doing manly things. Right. And so, but that's a big part of it.
You ever see the little meme picture? It's like a dude. He looks rough, right? He's dirty, and he's like leaning on a motorcycle, smoking a cigarette, and it's like the words are like, yeah, the whole family's doesn't want me around. They're like, until things go bad, So, then they call me. He's like, I'm the first one you call when the what hits the fan, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I love that. I love that kind of imagery because, man, I don't know. There's men and women are different, and we should celebrate those differences. And I don't think we should try to homogenize everything. It's kind of like food, and all the words that we can't say anymore. And like, how long is it going to be? How long until you can't say Mexican restaurant anymore? Because that's going to be offensive, right? And it's like, well, wait a minute. That's what it is. Well, yeah, but you can't call it a Mexican restaurant. Yeah, but it's owned by Mexican people and they cook food. Yeah, but you going to tell them they can't call it that? Yes, they will.
It's cultural. Why are you, appropriating culture in order to?
The beauty of this world is the differences between people. It would be the same as if everybody spoke the same language all around the world. That would absolutely suck. How boring would that be? You've traveled internationally. Mm-hmm. I've traveled internationally. It's awesome. One of the most fun things is when you're in a different country and the other person doesn't speak English and you don't speak whatever language they do, but you're both together trying to figure something out. And you do. And at the end of it, you're like, it's like you've made a new forever friend. You're like, hey, and like smiling and throwing your hands in the air and going, hey, that's universal. That means something good just happened. And that's happened to me. That's happened in France and Sweden and Iceland and all that, dude. And it's just like, I think we should celebrate the differences. And that goes for genders. That goes for sexual orientation. I don't care, dude. It's like, okay, yeah, I lean Republican. I ain't hiding anything. But you know what, dude? It's like, and all the stuff that gives them the bad names. I'm like, look, I don't care who you love. I don't care about any of that. And none of my friends that think like I do. But boy, we sure as hell are demonized. Out in the public. I'm like,
I always joke with my girls. I have one of my girls is, left home and become, the exact opposite of me. We still have a great relationship, but I always tease her by saying, you have no idea how hard it is to be an upper middle class white guy in today's society. I mean, like, it's funny because I give her a hard time and they know that I'm not politically correct. And I don't go out of my way to offend anybody unless unless my daughter's just being a jerk about it. And then I
public enemy number one, dude.
That's right. That's right. But it's a very interesting time with that regard. And I'm curious, and I know we've been spending a lot of time. One of the main reasons I wanted to talk to you is because you are a father of a young man, and somebody that I consider successful on many different levels, which is kind of the ideal of what I'm trying to show people with Maxed Out Man. I consider myself successful, marriage and family and business and, all of these different things. But I'm interested to know in raising a young man now. One of the things we talk about is that there is I think young men are demonized to the point where they're confused and scared about becoming men. Do you agree with that? Have you seen that? Like some of these, because now like it's a bad thing to be masculine, right? Like that's the whole. I've got a T-shirt that I've got a whole set of products that one of the phrases says masculinity is not toxic. Some men just suck. That's it's some people do, some women do also, but we've gotten a sense that with the young men, 17, 18, early 20s, they don't really know what the hell to do with themselves in terms of how do I become a man? Either, like you said, absent fathers don't really have anybody to show them, or B, society is telling them that being a man is the worst thing you can possibly be, to be manly. When I grew up and when you grew up, a teenage boy typically was fairly, athletic and muscular and, kind of like that was the ideal, quote unquote. Yeah. And now I don't think that's the case anymore. I think those guys are demonized as, whatever they happen to be. But anyway, I'm curious what you think about that.
Shape. Yeah. Don't get those shoulders too broad. You don't want that. If your waist size is smaller than the length in the jeans, you don't want that. You gotta. I'll tell you, I got lucky because, like Colton, I've known. I still go back to my girlfriend Julie now, who I've known her for 20 plus years. Right, her sons and Colton grew up together. They were total outdoors kids because of the lakes and stuff around here, and like. Those were, and they're all 100% man boys, Yeah, they were all good, and almost too much sometimes. And like, ooh, bring it in, So that was good, but I don't know, man. I got lucky. Like with Colton, just doesn't take any crap. He had the American flag flying off the back of the truck, and you can like that or not, but he was doing what he wanted to do. And if people didn't like it, he really didn't give a damn. And I'm like, dude, that is the best attitude to have, because you're not like all squeamish. You see them, but a lot of that is the socialization, I think, of the kids and the amount of time that they spend on the phones and on the tablets with their false friends. And it's interaction, man. Communication is, to me, the most important thing. It goes back to jobs. Can you carry on and speak a complete sentence in front of people? Can you walk into the room and not be awkward? And there's nothing wrong with being awkward. Awkward people watching, we love awkward people, but it's better when you're not. Like it's better for them. And there's so many. There's a kid in my neighborhood, and I have never made eye contact with this kid, and he's lived back here for a couple years because he walks down the road and he never looks up. Right. And I'm the guy in the neighborhood, dude. You've been in my neighborhood. When I'm driving, like, because I might be driving a John Deere tractor, a swamp buggy, a four-wheeler, whatever. I wave to everybody. When I wave at you, your ass better wave back. I can't stand it, dude, when somebody doesn't wave back to me in the neighborhood. And it's even worse when they just do that. I'm like, I want to stop, because I did it. There were two littler kids one time who wouldn't look at me. I'd wave at them, and they would just, at least they looked at me. They would just look at me weird, and I'd drive by. I finally stopped one day. I go, hey, I'm one of the good guys. I know your parents. When I wave to you, you wave back to me. They're like, yes, sir. Not a problem since then, dude. They're all good. Those kids are great. And
you taught them something about like society like that, right? Like they're just like, there's something that you taught them there.
Man, dude. And that's, if you're an effective communicator, you really, really don't need college. If you're going to become an engineer or a doctor, yes. But just to get by in life, no, you don't. A good communicator with people, and you get along with people, and you're honest, and you got a halfway decent work ethic, done. That's all you need to get by and probably do pretty damn well, right? You can be a millionaire? Yeah. I don't know. You're going to have a big yacht? Maybe not. But you'll get by, and you'll have the respect of other people. But man, I fear this. You and I, like when I was in college, AOL just came out.
Yeah,
AOL.
I remember that that dial tone and the little sound of the modem and you've got mail and all that stuff, right? So
and you're like, remember the picture would just build. You're like, yeah. Oh, it's like, that happens.
Yeah,
all
people,
the time.
It's such an old guy thing to say, but like it was 26.4K right? Like that was most people can't fathom how slow the internet was, but back in the day. But anyway.
The hardest thing for me about raising Colton and John Forrest and Jackson are Julie's sons, and we spend as much time together as we can. It's so much fun to have all the kids together when they're older and they're like little adults. You know? There's nothing better than a little innocent baby. That's like the greatest thing in the world. But man, is it fun to watch them grow up. My buddy of mine just had a baby, and I'm texting him before we got on the air. I go, dude, it's the greatest thing ever. It's the hardest thing you're ever going to do. Mm-hmm. But the rewards are just so awesome. But, the biggest challenge for me is like when, as Colton's growing up and he's seeing somebody who grew up in like a super rich family. The kid never had to work for anything. Just everything's getting handed to him, and he's just like, it's the fair thing that you've got to explain. You're like, bro, it's not fair. That life isn't fair. No matter what, the government can't make it fair. You're not going to get that. I can tell you, because we can't afford that. And that's a difficult thing. And he got over that pretty quick. He never became a pain in the ass with it. It's like he understood it. I think he saw that like the kid became like a little ass, and he was like, oh, so that's how that works. Not all of them did. I grew up in Southeast Florida, in Stewart. Plenty of wealthy kids that I grew up with, and some of them super wealthy, and the kids were wonderful, and they grew up to be great adults. I think statistically, I don't know how often that happens.
No, I mean, I think that requires effort. I think you become a good member of society when you come from major wealth in spite of what you come from. Yeah. Just like someone that grew up like me, poor white trash in a trailer house with an absent mom, I became who I am in spite of that situation. And what I think people do sometimes is they're like, oh, that person had everything given to them. And, they have tons of resources and money and all that. Well, that's in a lot of cases, that's just as bad of a hindrance as not having anything. And that's probably an unpopular opinion, especially in, today's entitlement society. But I think, there's a lot of people that don't agree with me. If you grew up in inner city, obviously there are situations that are just so bad that they're the escape velocity, so to speak, it would be much, much higher than someone that has, I could start a business because my dad will give me a $300,000 loan,
right?
That I may or may not have to pay back, but I still think it's a hindrance. And the work ethic is such a huge thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody's got different challenges and different things in their atmosphere growing up that we can't relate to, or they can't relate to. You know what I mean? I grew up in Florida. A lot of people in Nebraska, you can't relate to having poisonous snakes and alligators all over the place, but you get used to it.
Yeah.
So that one time Bruno was down here and I took him out on the pontoon boat and we had to walk. It was at my buddy's house and he had to walk through water about that deep, dude. To get
was he scared about the moccasins?
Bruno's probably 6'1", jacked, ex-jock, all this, that, the other, right? You know what I mean? Like Bruno's a dude, like you wouldn't mess with Bruno. Like you'd be all pissed off and you'd look at him and go, I don't know.
Yeah.
And he's like tiptoeing through the water like a little princess. I'm like, dude, what's the matter with you? He's like, alligators, bro. I'm like, it's 4 inches deep, dude.
You're going to see him coming.
Yeah. So funny, dude. I still razz him to this day. Hey, funny thing going back to the kid thing, and I don't know if this set with Colton or not. But I remember when I was like college or just out, clueless, not making much money, and one of my buddies had a Corvette and I was like, oh dude, Corvette. And I was like, man, I want a Corvette. And that was my goal in life. I was like, as soon as I can afford a Corvette, I'm going to get a Corvette. As soon as I could afford a Corvette, I didn't want a Corvette anymore, And I explained that story to Colton. Even now, it's so funny. We'll see a Corvette. I'm like, you know what? He goes, yes, Dad. Geez, you've told me this story like 40 times. He's like, stop. He's like, I know you don't want a Corvette. I'm like,
you did put a Stingray emblem on the side of your Toyota, though.
And that it's so funny that you remember that, right? Because that's where I like my Tundra is concrete gray. It looks like a gray shark kind of thing. Yep. So yeah, I bought Corvette Stingray badges off of Amazon for about $10. and I put some goop on the back and stuck them on the side of the truck. And it's the Stingray edition. So there, that's all I wanted out of the Corvette. I spent $10 and I got my Corvette fixed.
And it fooled me because I'm thinking, man, this has got to be super cool. He took a 6.2 LT motor out of the vet, dropped him in the store. You're like, no, I just bought these on Amazon. I was a little disappointed, but impressed at the same time.
When we were in Tampa at that detailing convention with G-Technic and all that, and to what Kevin's talking about, he brought me into a show. I parked the truck because they just wanted a decent looking big truck there, I guess, right? Because they had all the hot cars and all that. And I parked my truck in there, and I don't think about the fact that the Corvette Stingray badges are on. They're 4 inches long, whatever. I go take a leak or something. I'm talking to people. I walk back. There's a crowd of dudes. They're on their knees, looking underneath the truck. They're looking in between and under the undercarriage and stuff. And the one dude's like, "Man, did you put a Corvette?" I'm like, "No." What are you talking about? Why would you think that? He's like, "The badge is on the side." I'm like, "No, they were like $10 on Amazon." Oh my God. I've never in a million years would I have thought that people would have seen that and thought that I did an engine swap.
Yeah. Which is nice, because had you done that intentionally, you would be the biggest douche in the world to like, I'm just pretending I did something to this thing.
Right. Yeah, I mean, look. To go around saying, "Yeah, I got a Toyota Tundra with a Corvette engine in it," like that doesn't appeal to me. No.
I mean, we're getting ready to take the Denali motor out of this Yukon XL and drop it into Michelle's 04 Jeep Wrangler. So that's
but that makes sense.
Yeah, but we're not going to we're not going to put Stingray or Denali stickers on the side of it.
What you're doing is practical.
to take a pretty brand new Tundra and drop a new motor in it does not make a lot of sense. So
yeah, dude. But it's funny as you get older. See, nobody taught me about debt. I didn't know shit about interest rates. I didn't know stuff about anything. They didn't teach anything financial even when we were growing up, and they teach even less of that stuff now, dude. Conspiracy Matt, can Conspiracy Matt come out
just
for a little bit?
Go for it. I know he's been waiting to come out.
Bro, breaking out, dude. Because they want to keep us poor, for one, because we stay under control. They want us in debt. There's no doubt about that. And they want us sick. There's no money in healthy people. There's no money in people with everything paid off. Do you know how great it is to be a healthy person with no bills? Oh, yes, you do know. It's awesome. It's like you can do whatever you want, and nobody can tell you what to do. It's the greatest.
Because you're a rarity. You own your house, right? Yeah. Like you own your whole. You're pretty much debt free.
Yeah.
In that regard, which is a very rare thing. I'm not in that position because I use real estate as more of an investment type opportunity. So I do what they call it, which we may disagree on it. I leverage debt. So
listen, I don't disagree with that at all. The only thing that I disagree with is because I watch a lot of these financial dudes on YouTube, the financial entertainers, and because I love.
I like that. I've never heard that before. I'm going to use that.
Dude, that's what they are. But it's like guys will be like, if paying off your house is stupid, only idiots do that, and I'll show you why. They're going for clickbait, dude. Yeah. Here's what happened with me growing up with nothing. And then my parents got divorced and it was rough. Actually, when my parents were married, we had a decent place. They got divorced and it was like, boom, mom's scrambling at her job. We're barely getting by and all this, that, the other. And then in fast forward to 2008, where I lived here in Central Florida, good friends of mine with good jobs lost their homes because they just went way overboard, right? And they didn't have anything else it wasn't liquid. And then when the market dropped and what they owed was here and the value was here, when that met up, they were done and they didn't have anything else to sell off. And I watched good people who were good parents, still friends of mine to this day, lose their homes because they were in over their head. And I said to myself then, I go, that is not going to happen to me. It ain't going to happen. And I remember my buddy Eric, who I do the majority of my investing and financial stuff through. The reason I work with him is because we were friends and he knew that about me. And I said, this was on an old house that I had. I owed like 10 grand on it and I had the money. I'm like, Eric, I want to pay this house off. I want you to give me your blessing on it. He goes, listen, he goes, I could sit here all day long and show you how you could leverage that, or you could make more interest on it than you're paying. He goes, what's going to make you sleep better? I said, I'm going to sleep a hell of a lot better if I pay that house off. He goes, pay the house off.
Yeah.
I go, that's it. With me, it's peace of mind. And my only problem with these financial entertainers is when they put no value on peace of mind or the experience that I had that led up to why I paid my house off. I don't pay my house off because I'm stupid. I didn't pay my house off because I don't understand interest rates and investing. I paid my house off because of stuff that happened to me when I was younger. And I now feel better mentally, and I sleep better at night as a result of that. I understand that interest-wise, there's probably better things I could be doing. I get that. And I don't begrudge anybody for doing it. You know,
there's an emotional component to debt that I think even mortgage debt or car debt, or in my case, real estate, business debt, there's an emotional component, especially being someone like me. I'm self-employed. Like, I don't have a steady paycheck. So, I mean, I wake up some mornings, be like, oh man, I got to cover that.
Yeah.
Make sure I can cover that one coming in. And which, I mean, I've been that way for 25 years. So I've gotten used to it, but there is an emotional component to debt of any kind. And to pretend there's not, I think, is the big mistake. Like, yes, there's an emotional component, but you made your choice for a specific set of reasons. People that use debt from an investment standpoint do so understanding the risk, understanding the emotional component, and then they do it for different reasons. And so that's what I think. I think we lie to each other. I think people are lied to. And even in the predatory lending, 2007, 2008, where they were saying, hey, let's do this, 5-1 adjustable rate mortgage. Don't worry about the balloon payment. You'll refinance by then. Your house is going to go up by 8% per year. No big deal. Well, as it turns out, it went 8% the other direction, or 20 or 30. And then you're just screwed. You're 50, what people had their $2,000 house payment, which is a lot anyway, go to like $6,000 in 1 month. Yeah. And what are you going to do? It's like, well, get the U-Haul.
Yeah. Yep. It's interesting to me on the predatory lending because I agree that did happen. But the side that nobody ever talks about is the greed side of the individual. It's like, okay, so I'm going to buy this house for $200,000. Well, the evil bank tells me that I can afford a $300,000 house. Okay, so I did it blindly. I just did what the evil bank told me I could do. It's like, well, listen, there's a little bit of you in there that should have known better. Yeah. Right? It's like, you're going, oh, wow, honey, look, the bank tells us we can afford this. Let's do it. Maybe your wife should have said, honey, maybe not. So look.
No, personal responsibility. Yeah, I'm not discounting personal responsibility. You made these decisions, like, people laid it out and you chose that path. Like, there's unless you're just severely undereducated. Obviously there was some of that, but that's pretty small percentage to where people literally just didn't understand the math and they did it anyway.
And now it's like, let's do this student loan forgiveness for all these people. Well, look, why don't we just give everybody over 18 the same amount of money? I mean, why student loans? What about the kids that went to trade school? Are they going to get money back? Probably not.
No.
It's not. I paid all my student loans back.
Me too.
So, and I love it when people go, yeah, but Matt, you've done okay. You can afford it. I was like, don't tell me that. Don't hit me with this must be nice BS, dude, because there's a reason that we got here. Sacrificed fam. I'm sure, Kevin, you had no sleepless nights at all being an entrepreneur. No. You make sacrifices that others don't do, and that's how you succeed in a business, right? Yeah. And others make sacrifices that I wouldn't make, and that's why they're successful in that business. All my buddies that own restaurants, I don't know, they'll go, don't get into the restaurant business. I'm like, man, it must be awesome. You got this cool place. You're just making money hand over fist. And they're like, stay out of it. I'm like, dude, you're telling me you're like making all this money. They're like, trust me, you're married to it. I
was listening to Micro podcast on his yesterday, and he was saying he had a guy that makes software for restaurants. 18 days is the average cash reserve to cover expenses that restaurants have. So they can literally only survive if their restaurant shuts down for however long. They have about 18 days worth of cash to keep the lights on average. Like
if they got that building paid off, they got 22 days.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, because some of the, the locations are paying 15 grand a month, and that's part of the equation for some of that stuff. But yeah, it's the student debt thing is it's crazy because there's a predatory component to that. You take an 18-year-old kid. Absolutely. I mean, my daughter's going through right now, and I'm like, don't do it. Don't go down that road. Don't, because it's not real. It's fake money, right? Like that's the thing. It's fake money, and it's a little bit of a mental challenge.
At UCF, when I went up there, I remember I turned, my birthday's in late August, so I was actually in college for about a week at the age of 17. And I mean, it was just, dude, I didn't drink in high school. I didn't do anything. I worked at Publix, which is a big shopping center down in the Southeast. And I just worked and went to school. And man, I was so sheltered. I moved up to UCF and discovered staying up late and drinking. Still didn't know anything about credit cards, interest rates, any of that stuff, right? Nothing. All I know is that Citibank has got these little pop-up tents all over campus. And they've got the hottest chicks you've ever seen standing underneath them. And all I got to do is fill out this little sheet of paperwork and put all my information on there. And I get to talk to this hot chick, and I get a free 2-liter bottle of Coke. Sign me up. And that's where the debt started, dude.
Yeah. I don't think much has changed with that. I don't really know. I assume that they still do that. Just based on the number of, special offers I get in the mail, and I'm old.
Those banks aren't dumb. I'll bet you they're still doing the same thing. Dude. So I mean, there's that, right? I'm fortunately for me, my older brother was in real estate, and he talked me into, I was renting a condo, and he's like, dude, what are you paying for rent? I'm like $750. He goes, dude, you could probably have a payment there of about $375. And he was right. And I was probably 23 at the time or something. That was the first piece of property I ever bought. It was the best thing I ever did. Yeah. Got into that and realized it and rented that out for a couple of years to my buddy who just trashed it out. But then I learned how much I don't like owning rental property.
Yeah, it's a different kind of mentality for sure. We're doing some real estate development where we actually buy, renovate, and instead of flipping, we hold. Yeah. And hold and rent. And so, yeah, there's some challenges. My dad was a rental property manager for 20 years or whatever. So I kind of got to grow up and see how all that stuff goes. But man, I've kept you for over an hour. So I mean, I'm very appreciative. I love your insight. I love what you've done with your life. And I really appreciate just having the opportunity to become friends with you guys. Man, it's been a lot of fun.
We hit it off right from the start. And I remember when we were in Tampa and because I mean, we knew each other or whatever, but then we sat down and we had lunch that day and we started talking about parenting and debt came up and all this, that, the other. And I think that's where you and I started clicking. And it's so cool. I love what you're doing with this. It's so cool to meet other people because you know this, you have to be careful. Like when good things happen to you because of the effort and the work that you put in, it's like you want an attaboy from somebody, right? And but you know how it is. Like you got to be careful in today's world. Hey man, I finally pulled this off. Well, good for you. Like, no, this is pretty amazing. I can't believe it worked. There's I've been working on this for 10 years and it finally happened. It's like you want to go to somebody and share that, not in a bragging way, but in a holy crap, dude. I dreamt about this and it happened. And you're one of those guys I can do that with. I got a handful around here locally and I appreciate that, Same thing on the parenting side. I do these videos on every Father's Day because, dude, I don't have cable. How bad is that?
That's good. I don't have cable either. We watch things on Hulu, but yeah.
It's like I got so tired. I touched on this earlier of you could name the TV shows where the dad's the jackass, right? And the kids don't do anything, but the dad is still made fun of constantly. Commercials are like that. And I'm like, these are multi-million dollar products that they're trying to sell to you and to me. And you want to belittle the role of the father and you want me to buy your stuff? Dude, I'm one of the few people I know. Like when I don't like a commercial, I'm like, I ain't buying it. And people are like, dude, how much impact are you going to make as one person? I'm like, probably none. I don't care. I'm way too stubborn for my own good, but things have worked out.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we get a lot of positive male role models, and when we do, they're demonized and vilified, and and for whatever reason. Like, I don't mind if you're not like the manliest. I mean, dude, my wife calls me metrosexual because I shave my face and and cut my nails and all that stuff, But like, I'm not a big burly guy, and if you're if you're not that way, then that's fine. But they make fun of dads. Like, the dad's always the idiot. It doesn't matter what it is. And I think that has been, I mean, that's been going on since forever. Like, that was 80s and 90s sitcoms started doing that with some of the things, but it's gotten far, far worse, and it's funny now because I noticed that and again, I'm not diminishing the role of women in our society to say that now you don't see any commercials where men are doing more traditional male roles and women are doing traditional female roles. Like, you don't see like I told Michelle, I'm like, I haven't seen a commercial with a mom doing the laundry in like 5 years. You just because you're not allowed to show that men and women both know how to do laundry. You're not allowed. It's the guys.
Men have to do the laundry now. Yeah, men do the laundry now. Everybody knows that.
So it's the
same thing, right? Like I'm slim, lean, a towering 5'10" and a half. About $170, right? And I like and I'm in the off-road world. I'm deep in the off-road world, right? And it's so because I've taken the abuse from the time we started the company. They're like, oh, look at you, Mr. Clean, pretty little skinny boy, all this, that, the other. And I remember one time we got on the subject of like chainsaws, and I'm like, dude, I love my chainsaw. And my good buddy of mine looks at me, not that good of a buddy, but we get along. He goes, dude, I just can't see you with a chainsaw. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? You can't see me with a chainsaw. He's like, I don't look at you and think chainsaw. I go, you ought to see all the wood piled up in my backyard. I go, you might think chainsaw then. I'm like, what about John Deere tractor? You think that?
Which you have two of, by the way.
Two of them, yeah. They're like, damn it, dude, I don't have to be fat with a beard to enjoy doing stuff outside.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm sorry. It's so funny because Julie's like, I love you just the way you are. I'm like, you like I'm thin, clean, no tattoos? She's like, yes. I'm like, good. That's what you got.
Because that's what you get. I'm too old to change now.
Yeah. I'm 50. This is it, So.
Well, and that's the interesting thing. I think that we can define masculinity in different ways, but I think there are some traditional ways that still should kind of hold the test of time.
I think how you treat your partner, how you treat your children, and how you treat your friends, I think is the defining cast net for all of that. And your partner can be anybody, dude. That's another thing. I know some dudes that I know some gay dudes that are the most masculine dudes And it's funny because we talk. I'm like, man, all those people that make jokes, they would never make the joke to you. And they're the ones who go, yeah, I don't really care if they do. They go, it's fine. They go, actually, we tell the jokes too because they're funny. You know? And that's what I'm like, wow, everybody gets along. What 80%? Not 80, but like how like you take all of any group of people, color, sexual orientation, upbringing, but it doesn't matter. It's like 80% of them are totally normal. Then 10% are a little weird this way, 10% are a little weird that way. And those 10% are what we concentrate on.
Yeah. And especially what the media wants us to believe, right? That's there's my conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
I think most people get along. Like
Totally.
I'm so self-centered. I don't really think about any of that stuff with your regard. I just want to be nice to you and have you be nice to me and let's get along and have a good time. That's
Yeah.
kind of my philosophy.
That is absolutely horrible that you would even think that much.
I
less
know,
serious.
right? I'm supposed to hate everybody that doesn't believe exactly what I do.
Hey, dude, but we talked about sick people and debt are both big business. The other one that's just as big, maybe the biggest of the three, is keeping us all mad at each other, dude. And the day that ends is the day that we can finally start making some real progress in this world, I think.
Yeah.
You
I
imagine if they didn't manufacture stuff to keep us pissed off at each other, so many people weren't in so much debt, and everybody was a little bit healthier. Whew. There'd be 20 billion people on the planet.
You're living in a dream world, Elon Musk.
That's my neighborhood.
That is your neighborhood. So Matt lives in a neighborhood that you better make sure you know how to get out of it, because once you get into it, your GPS on your cell phone no longer works. I had that experience. I navigated my ass out of your neighborhood by feel. And I was like, oh, cool. There's the highway. I know where I'm at now. And then all of a sudden my phone started working again. So,
and you can't listen to the gunfire because that's happening in different areas. So, it's not.
Dude, I live in Montana. 82% of Montanans own guns. It's probably 78% in Florida or more. But yeah, we constantly have gunfire, especially before hunting season and all that. Everybody's dialing in there.
I heard in Montana, there was a building that sold locks, and they had to go out of business because nobody needed them.
We don't. Like, I literally, unless we leave, and people can come to my house, but unless we leave for a week or more, we don't lock the house. There's this farm mentality, and they probably do this in Florida too, where you never take the keys out of your vehicle if you're out on the farm, and you don't lock it, because chances are you've parked somewhere you're not supposed to be, so it may need to be moved. Unless you want someone to come get the tractor with that spike on the end of it and move it, you leave all that stuff in. So yeah, it's a different world we live in. We live out in the country in Montana, so we love it.
When we were talking last summer, when I went up to northern Wisconsin, it's very similar, the deal up there. My grandparents never locked the house, never took the keys out of the car, even when they went into town. And I'm like, Grandpa, you don't want to take the keys with you? He goes, I might lose them. I'm worried about it.
At least now I know where they are at.
I'm like, well, somebody might steal the car. He goes, nobody's going to steal the car. He's like, the odds of me losing the keys are far greater than somebody stealing the car.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, that's an interesting way of looking at it. I go, not in Chicago, not in Miami.
No.
So. Yeah.
And we have a little bit of transient traffic up here, so you kind of have to be careful when you come into town, because we're right on I-90. So we get, the people that are not from here that you have to be a little bit diligent of. But I mean, Michelle has a 9mm in her nightstand. I've got one in mine. If anybody breaks in, I'm handing her mine, because she's just a better shot with both hands than I can be with one. But that's
if she takes the gun and holds it sideways and throws the bullets.
Yeah. Have you ever tried to shoot a pistol sideways like that? I have a hard enough time shooting, normally. And that's, you don't hit anything, let alone a person. But
no, but you put some nice holes in the wall.
For sure. So,
and you got to do it while you're running.
That's right. Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, it's craziness.
Listen, man, I'm sorry if I said anything offensive. No, I'm not.
No, you shouldn't. You shouldn't be. First of all, if it's offensive, like we said, that's a personal problem anyway. If you're offended, you're probably not going to be listening to this. Or if you are offended, put in the comments. Let me know. Let's talk about it. Let's be better friends. Figure out what we could do to come together and kumbaya.
Yeah.
Hey man, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much. How do we find you with all your stuff? I know this is your getting started on your busy Trucks Gone Wild season, right?
Yeah. We just started. We've had a couple of events this year, and then it's really kicking in. We're doing another cruise this year. We did one 3 years ago, right before COVID, and it was so much fun because it was all people that come to our events on the boat. And then obviously when COVID happened, it shut down the whole cruise line thing.
Yep.
That all opened back up. We got one booked in October amongst all of the other events. I don't know. There's 22 events plus the cruise booked this year. And then we'll shoot Truck U in between all of that. Matt Steele at Facebook, Steele, and then official Trucks Gone Wild at Facebook. Whatever.
And Trucks Gone Wild on Instagram too, right?
Yeah. I don't really check that stuff. I'm not a huge social media guy. Everybody tells you need to be more active. You need to be doing this. I'm like, I'm pretty happy keeping to myself, doing my thing.
You know what's funny? I took a video at Sanford of a red Ford pickup that I actually saw later in town. Posted on TikTok. It's a 6-second video. It's over 700,000 views, which did absolutely nothing for me on TikTok because TikTok has too many young people. But yeah, so I'm doing your job for you. All my other videos have like 12 views. So,
I hire people to do that. I do. I've got the best jobs, dude. I have great business partners. I've got Julie is just awesome. My girlfriend. I'm in such a good, happy place, and I wasn't always there. Been happy with business for a little while, but business is good. Personal life sucks. Whatever. It's like everything's clicking, man. Nice right now. So it's a pretty wonderful thing, and I thank you because I know you're always checking in on me and stuff like that, and I appreciate it.
Well, it's good to have friends. We all got to stick together, right? So
damn right.
All right, buddy. Well, I appreciate you, Mr. Matt Steele, frontman extraordinaire. I'm just going to refer to you that way every time I see you now.
We say it. Yeah. We're like, if we were a band, I'm the lead singer. That's what we say.
If you're looking to really maximize your life and become the man you were made to be, head over to maxedoutman.com and get your journey started today.